Sorry about that. This is basically continuing the chapter 2 discussion here. And basically, what it is I was mentioning a tafsir of Ibn Kathir. And this is what Spencer quotes in his book. He quotes the following. He says, quote, I'm moving this so you can hear me. Hopefully, you can hear me. He quotes basically, let's see here, says that, quote, no idolater had any more treaty or promise of safety ever since Surah Bara was revealed. And so that's what he quotes. He says that basically after this verse was revealed, that essentially there was no more peace treaty with the pagans anymore. Then he continues on in verse 6. And if any one of the pagans seeks your protection, then grant him protection, so that he may hear the word of Allah, the Quran, and then escorts him where he can be secure, because they are people who know not. And Ibn Kathir, or basically the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, he basically goes on to explain this. Now, as this is loading briefly, I'd like to mention that this is not the opinion of Ibn Kathir. He's actually quoting Ibn Abbas. So Spencer actually says this is the opinion of the person who wrote the tafsir. That is not correct. He's quoting somebody else. Ibn Kathir does not say this is my opinion. This is basically the opinion of somebody else. Then he says, Allah and his prophet, peace be upon him, it says, and if any one of the pagans who you were commanded to fight, and we allowed you their blood and property, seeks your protection, in other words, asks you for safe passage, then accept his request until he hears the words of Allah, the Quran, recite the Quran to him, and mention a good part of the religion with which you establish Allah's proof against him, meaning their belief, and then escort him to where he can be secure and safe until he goes back to his land, his home, and area of safety. This is because there are people who know not. Now, again, if you have to read the tafsir for yourself, but see, a lot of the words I just mentioned are actually Ibn Kathir's explanation of it. Then it says, he goes on to mention that, let's see here. It goes on to say that, he commanded that, let's see, in summary, those who come from a land at war with the Muslims to the area of Islam, delivering a message for business transactions, to negotiate a peace treaty, to pay the jizra, to offer an end to hostilities, and so forth, and request a safe passage from Muslim leaders or their deputies, should be granted safe passage as long as they remain in Muslim areas until they go back to their land and sanctuary. So it's actually ironic that Spencer tries to use the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, and he abuses it by saying that Ibn Kathir said that this, in his opinion, in Ibn Kathir's opinion, that this verse abrogated or destroyed any peace treaty at all with the pagans. But then he actually, Spencer, in his own words, goes on to mention the idea that this is with anybody, any treaty, period. But Ibn Kathir contradicts Robert Spencer. He says, in Ibn Kathir's opinion, that in this laundry list here, that if anybody comes to the Muslims for a peace treaty, that it should be accepted, and that his opinion that this person should be taken care of. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, Spencer is being just outright ridiculous here. So you have to read a tafsir for yourself. Don't just take someone's opinion of it and then go on. Then in page 29, Spencer says there's a difference between violence from the Bible and the Quran, and he says that, and who's to be fought in the Bible, in the verses that he pulls out of context into his book, are verses where the children of Israel are commanded to exterminate, if you will, a lot of the pagans and drive a lot of the pagans out of their homes, so they could occupy the land of Israel for themselves, because God promised it to them. And he accepts the violence that's in the Bible, but then he goes on to say that the Bible specifies who's to be attacked. The Quran, in his opinion, does not. He says, but actually, the Quran does. It mentions over and over again the pagans, the polytheists, the pagans, the polytheists. It's speaking of the Quraysh, the enemies that were attacking Medina. Page 31, Spencer tells us his readers to read N.J. Dawood's translation of the Quran. He encourages his readers to read that translation. I'm curious as to why he doesn't tell them to read, I don't know, Abdul Yusuf Ali or any other translation. And I do have a copy of N.J. Dawood's translation. And one thing I think is kind of ironic is that this is the one English translation that has no commentary. So, and he actually puts down Abdul Yusuf Ali by saying that it's kind of tedious to read, kind of like the King James version of the Bible, because it has a lot of ye's and these and thou. So he's basically trying to tell people, don't read Abdul Yusuf Ali, read this other one. But what's also ironic is he uses the term that Muslims don't like that translation because the translator wasn't a Muslim. I have never met a Muslim who has disliked translation of N.J. Dawood. The only thing they don't like about it is that there's no commentary. So Spencer's telling his readers to go read a copy of the Quran that has no commentary and to dismiss Abdul Yusuf Ali, Muhammad Assad, who has great commentary and actually tells you the context of the verse and explains the verses very well. So to me, the point I'm trying to make here with this last part of chapter 2 is that uh, essentially he's encouraging his readers not to read Qurans that have commentary to get additional information. That's really disturbing. Anyway, this is the end of part 2 of analyzing chapter 2, and I will be continuing on with chapter 3, hopefully in the near future. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Peace be with you all.